From Ride the West Horse Expo in Spokane, Washington, Reinsman presents Part 12 of a 13-week series with Sharon Camarillo. This week, Sharon brings everything we have been learning together with pattern work for the art of barrel racing.
It's great. This horse fair has really been fun. What we're going to talk to you today about is the art of barrel racing. And when it boils down, all it amounts to is the approach, the rate, and the turn. That's really easy to say, but what we're going to do is combine the skills that we've talked about through the seminars at Ride the West, and we're going to put it all together on the cloverleaf pattern. We talked a little earlier today about the resources of the gymnastics, and as many ways as we can reinforce the skills that our horses will need while they're on the pattern without the traditional 3-barrel setup, the better off we're going to be. We said earlier that patterned horses oftentimes become very anxious, become very frustrated, because not only are we working the pattern, we're also working on our ability to control that horse. So we want to work on those control issues, those position issues, the lateral control and the longitudinal control from front to back off the barrels. And as we develop and learn our skills, as we increase the integrity of ourselves as a rider, as we gain and teach balanced body position to us, it transfers through to the horse. So what we're going to do now is start to introduce the art of barrel racing, the approach, rate, and turn on the barrel pattern. As we ride down, I'm also going to have you notice the equipment that I'm using. And throughout the earlier seminars, we've had our horses in martingales and training equipment. We've got some bridles on the fences, and in our earlier lectures, we talked about the resource of your low school training in snaffles, your mid-school training in transition equipment, and your high school training in shank bridles with the leverage of the shank and the addition of a curb strap. So what I've got on this little mare is a Pelham bit. And with the Pelham bit, it allows me to use 4 reins if I choose to in a transition process, because I've got direct control to her face, and I've also got some indirect control and leverage with the introduction of a shank that then many times increases the pounds per square inch. As the rider asks for requests, it transmits through the length of shank, applies curb pressure, and helps in a variety of control issues. 1, in your rate and collection. Number 2, in your ability to get their nose. Number 3, being able to control and balance the horse's shoulder. So as we start to increase speed and go into our seasoning and competition program, we really want to make sure that we've taken our horses through the transition process and gotten them into a shank. We've introduced a leather tie down, a Pelham bit, and you'll see little leather bit connectors. So I don't have the maximum amount of leverage that I could if my rein was snapped in the lower shank, nor do I have the direct control from my hand to her mouth as I would in a snaffle. I've got a little of both. So it's not a snaffle, it's not a shank, it's a transition. And that's where this mare's at. Even though she's 6, even though she came off the track, yes, she knows how to run, that's her strength. She does have the skills proficient enough at this stage of her training to go fast at a semi-out-of-control speed on the barrels. So I want to choose equipment that I'm going to be able to help her, handle her, and keep her balanced. So we've got our barrels set up, and I'm going to ride you through and explain to you our resource and use of the cones. My first cone is called my start point. And you know, there's a fallacy, because the riders say, well, you always start off your angle to the 3rd barrel. Okay, my first turn is the 1st barrel, And I want to know that I'm going to ride into my approach and my perfect pocket that's consistent to my training. Now, if I always start off the angle of the third barrel, if it's a large 17 or 18 second course placed in a big arena, it's going to be wider between the first and second barrel. Therefore, the third is wider than the approach I need to my first barrel. So the position of the third barrel with that concept is deceiving. On the other hand, if it's a tight little 12-second course, the first and second barrel are much closer together. The third barrel is closer in line to the first, and I'm going to be too straight in my angle of approach. So I want to develop a perspective from my start to my first barrel with the personality of the arena and the placement of the barrel in mind. So I want to do a little homework before I ever ride into the arena for competition. I'm going to ride in, I want to show my horse the walls, and even though the barrels may or may not be set up already, I can see where the flags or the markers are. And if they won't let me ride my horse in the arena, then I'm going to be creative. And, you know, I'm one of those characters that like to beg for forgiveness instead of ask for permission. So as a competitor, I want to get the home court advantage. And if I have to walk in on foot to get my start point and set my pocket points, I'm going to do it. So where is the starting point that I work my horses over and over at home? It's going to depend on my horse's athletic ability and his amount of training to help me decide where to start, the angle of approach that I need to ride straight up into my first barrel position, and the amount of pocket that I'm going to need. Now, the pocket is the room between the barrel and the horse. And it's very easy for a rider to lose focus on the approach into the barrel if they're not focusing in on where their horse needs to be. This is a little too tight. And what it's going to allow me to do in many cases is not get my precise turn and not allow my horse to come out and finish close to the barrel. So my goal is to know the stage of training my horse is at, because my finished first barrel turn needs to allow me to be placed so my first stride away from the barrel is fast, full strided, and straight, just like a bullet, across to my second barrel position. So with that in mind, how much pocket do I need to give this horse to have the ability to come out tight? Now she's 6, she's green on the barrel pattern, so I'm going to give her kind of a standard pocket to start off with, and I'm going to estimate it's about 8 feet. But what I'm going to do in this green horse is also give her the benefit of the doubt, and instead of turning at the cone position, I'm going to ride a stride further into my turn that doesn't crimp her quite so tight, and it's going to give me the opportunity to come out close to my barrel so that powerful drive away from the barrel is straight and true into my second barrel position. Now again, how much room am I going to need to turn the second barrel? If I give the horse too much room, it's going to give her the incentive to drop her shoulder to get into position, and if I take her in too tight, it's certainly going to limit the amount of drive and impulsion that she can maintain through the turn. So part of this is a trial and error, and obviously we want to get in absolutely as tight as we can to a barrel to create our fast times. Now I also want to identify the shape of the arena, and this little pin right here, the barrels are set quite close to the wall. But notice that there's no wall on this first barrel. So there's always an open-ended area as you approach your first barrel, and I want you to remember that each barrel has its own and unique personality. The first barrel is always open-ended. So I want to make sure that I ride into position and collect my horse in a half halt or rate before I ask for a turn, because a successful first barrel is going to dictate the timing for the remainder of the run. Second barrel, look at what I'm going into. There's a sign, there's a fence. My horse sees that there's a tight area, and she's going to be apprehensive in moving up into her turning position. So I want to make sure that I take her in this particular arena just a little deeper before my rate on the second. And this, look at the third barrel, and again, I see that this barrel is set up into the back end of the arena, so I may not want to rate her until deeper up into the turn, possibly until my leg is at the barrel. So I've already adjusted my rate cone to take that into consideration. We've got 3 cones on each barrel. The first cone says ride straight line in my approach. Straight line. We want to approach our barrels in a straight line. And as I look up, I can see a cone on the wall that's going to give me an idea to ride into my angle of approach. Nice straight line. And as I get to the first cone position, it reminds me, now I've got a rate. So first our approach, nice and straight. First cone reminds me to slow down for my rate. Take the nose, and the last cone says, ride to me so you can finish straight. And the last cone also says, if you pick up the outside rein a little bit, it'll help send your horse away from your barrel in a nice, straight, true direction. So once again, you'll notice too that it's a no start, no stop pattern. When I turn that third barrel, I'm going back to the wall so I can continuously work this horse over and over without creating any kind of anticipation for a finish or a dread of a start. I want to reach down and make sure that this horse feels like this is fun. We're having fun, doggone it, and we are blessed to live in a country that gives us the spare time to be able to pursue our dreams and goals. Now let's talk about body position. When I'm riding through this turn, you remember earlier in our gymnastic exercises that we're riding square. Does it look like it's square? Not really. But what I'm not doing is I'm not riding the inside rein and pulling my horse out away from the barrel. Look how it inhibits this horse's ability to move forward when I pull the inside rein. All of a sudden I start getting lateral motion. And in an event that's judged solely by the stopwatch, any time a step is not forward, it's slow. So I'm going to complement with the outside rein to be able to ride both sides of my horse. The inside rein controls the direction. The outside rein helps that shoulder stay underneath the horse, complemented by a little shift in the outside stirrup, which keeps the rib cage balanced, and then a squeeze with both legs helps create the impulsion as the horse leaves the barrel. Remember that where you look is going to be where you want to ride your horses. And as you put your aids together, you want to balance that shoulder in between your hands. You want to balance the rib cage in between your legs. A balanced rider creates a balanced horse. Nice straight approach. Add the rate at the first cone. Remember, the second cone says start the nose, ride to the last cone, and finish in a nice, true, straight approach into your second barrel pocket. Deep into the second barrel when it's sitting on the fence. And now I want to sit deep. Once I rate, I want to sit in my turn. A little weight shift in the outside stirrup is going to keep that rib cage centered underneath in a balanced position. I don't want this horse dropping in, nor do I want her stepping out. Left shoulder comes back, left pelvis back, and where I look is where I'm going to ride her feet. Again, at a low, balance straight. Put your skills together. Didn't like it. Didn't like it. Release the pressure. Nice big circle. No big issue. Just go back to your skill drills. And all right correction. Release the pressure. Once you get her rebalanced, right back up into your barrel and through. Drop down. Let's get a simple lead change. And I don't feel her getting ready to take it. So what I'm going to do is place her right back out in the nice big circle. Reinforce her placement and her balance. Do I take a horse through with one hand on the rein? If I need to. A young horse, usually I like to ride two hands to balance, but maybe I can use a little movement with my outside leg and my over and under to drive her up from behind. She got a little bracy in front. She didn't have a correct lead, so I didn't want to set her up for failure and let her go ahead and stumble through that third barrel. So no big deal. Just back her off, take some time to rebalance her, soften my pelvis up, check out my aids. Are they efficient? Are they effective? Shorten stride, and take her right on through the turn. Very nice. Again, simple lead change. Drop to a trot, correct diagonal, right back out, correct right lead. So let's just tie it all together. Straight line balance, shoulder balance, rib cage. Sit down, collection of stride. Look up, see where you're going. As a green horse, I want a correct lead, and I didn't like that turn. She's not balanced. Need to move her up from behind. No big deal. Cowgirl, you're doing good. Ride her through the turn, correct lead. Not wanting to maintain that lead. So here's a good point that I'm going to quit on. Having a difficult time in the left. Right turn is tolerable. So I'm going to work a couple of all lefts. Nice big relaxed circle. One tighter circle. Maintain the position. Back in the nice big left circle. Let's change scenery and work an all left down at the second barrel. Just feel a little rooty in her face. Need to seesaw just lightly to lighten her up and rebalance her. Chin up, eyes forward. Where am I riding? One tighter turn. Decent. Back up into that third barrel. Wants to be a little pushy in her face. And I'm going to find a point to quit her. And I always like to do that right up here at the first barrel. It's very similar to a roper. This first barrel is a stressful area like a box. So not only am I going to expect her to work at the first barrel, I'm also going to reward her. Nice job, little girl. Now, it's hot out here. And she's hot. She's a little out of shape. The work was certainly tolerable, and I saw some incentive to pay attention to me. knowing this mare's history, that she's fallen behind the bridle and had a lack of ability to maintain a balanced forward motion. And then when you school her in that position to drive her into the bridle, she wanted to leap rear and run away. So in the fact that we're starting to get her back on the bridle, not too far ahead of it and not too much behind it, I think the work overall was very tolerable, and I found a way to reward her incentive. We could have worked her a little more, but I'm fearful that the heat here would have involved her having a little tantrum, and then you know what, I got to win, because I can't put her away with her thinking that she's the boss. So we analyzed the conditions, got some good points across, made a nice introduction, applied the review, and now we're going to say, good job, little Jules. So you're starting to understand the resource of developing your skills, utilizing your gymnastic resources, the importance of selecting equipment, going from the low school snaffle and combination of martingale into your transition, developing the horse's ability to carry a bridle, introduce the shank and the tie down, is all part of your foundation resource.
This complete Sharon Camarillo Barrel Racing Clinic series will soon be available for purchase in tack stores and online. The programs, available on both DVD and VHS, will have additional bonus footage from Sharon's Ride the West Clinic. For more information on when and where you can purchase a Sharon Camarillo series, log on to www.reinsman.com. Next week, we conclude this series with Sharon's students applying the art of barrel racing on the cloverleaf pattern. So join us again next week right here on Horse TV. The Sharon Camarillo series is produced by Advent Communications. Contact us at clinictv@aol.com.